Yeah, there he is. There he is. Rodney Varner, the president and CEO of Genprex. Rodney, how are we doing today?
Doing great. How about you, Spencer?
Doing fantastic.
Glad to hear it.
Fantastic. Guys, let's go ahead and there are the slides. And Rodney, tell us all about Genprex.
Okay, happy to. So you're going to advance the slides for me, right, Spencer?
We got it.
Okay. Well, great. Well, at Genprex, well, first of all, I'm Rodney Varner, CEO and chairman of Genprex, and I'd like to thank all of those in attendance, both for your time and for your interest today. Spencer, if you'd go back to that forward-looking statement slide. This is our forward-looking statement slide. I know that you see these probably from every presenter. I know that you're familiar with them, but nevertheless, I'm obligated to point it out to you. Obviously, things may not go as projected or, as we expect. And so I would commend this slide to your reading on our slide deck. Also, the slide deck that I'm reading from today is on our webpage under our Investor Download tab. It's a very long slide deck, 30 plus slides, and it has a lot of detail about our science and technology. I'm not going to be able to cover all of that today. I'm going to be skipping around in the deck, but I would commend that to your reading. If you're interested and would like more detail, you can find a lot in that deck. This is our basic stock information, Genprex at a glance. We're traded on NASDAQ under GNPX. You can get all of this information on your trading platform, obviously, but I do want to point out the number on the right, our cash position, 44.2 million as of the end of the last quarter. We have no debt other than trade payables, and so we're well positioned to execute the programs that I'll be telling you about today. I'm going to spend some time on this slide. These are high points on why we believe that you should consider an investment in Genprex. First of all, we have a gene therapy platform. We use a non-viral nanoparticle delivery system to deliver therapeutic genes to tumors. This is an important platform. For one thing, we can deliver numerous genes, different genes, to numerous types of cancer. We're not limited to lung cancer, although that's a vast market. And we can combine this with multiple other cancer-fighting drugs. We have preclinical research that indicates that it's synergistic with a range of other cancer-fighting drugs. So multiple genes, multiple types of cancer, multiple other types of drugs. So with this platform, we can build out by adding other genes or using other genes. We can identify additional cancers to target, and we have preclinical research on numerous other cancers that might benefit from our gene therapy. So this platform is going to be the basis for building out, we believe, an extensive pipeline for Genprex. We have the first systemic gene therapy used for cancer in humans. The key words there are systemic and for cancer in humans. Our gene therapy can be injected by IV. It circulates throughout the bloodstream and attacks tumors wherever they appear. So they're not limited to being injected into a tumor like many gene therapies are. And we are not aware of another systemic gene therapy that's been used for cancer in humans. We've treated over 50 patients over 2 clinical trials with this, beginning over a decade ago. And so our research and the information that we can access indicates that we're the first systemic gene therapy used for cancer in humans. We think that's very important. We think that we're a leader and that there will be many other followers over the years, but we think that we're going to be the first mover with a gene therapy used systemically for cancer. We're addressing large markets and unmet needs. and I mean really large markets. Our first cancer indication is non-small cell lung cancer. I'll give you more information on this a little later in the deck, but it's a very large market and represents a huge unmet need because late stage lung cancer patients have few options today. Also, we have a separate and distinct gene therapy for diabetes. It addresses both type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Diabetes affects about 10% of the population, about 34 million people in the United States. So another huge market. And that's a market that's characterized by children who have type 1 diabetes, many people who are extremely ill and even die from either type 1 or type 2 diabetes. So another very large unmet need. We're doing combination trials of our gene therapy, which is trade named Recorsa, with top-selling cancer drugs. Our initial 2 clinical trials are with Tagrisso by AstraZeneca. It's their largest selling drug, and Keytruda by Merck, which is Merck's largest selling drug. Our proposition is that if you combine our gene therapy with either of these drugs, you'll get a better outcome than with that drug alone or with our gene therapy alone. In other words, they're synergistic. So again, combining with the largest selling drugs of Merck and AstraZeneca. And therefore, if our drug is approved for use with either or both of these, we have the chance to participate in those huge markets that they are already enjoying. And we do it without taking market share from anyone. We're not competing for market share with them or anyone else. We would be additive. We would extend the time that patients would benefit from those drugs and possibly expand the number of patients who would benefit from those drugs. So we think this is very important that we're addressing these really large markets, and that in a way the markets have already been established, and all we have to do is be added to existing drugs that are already being sold to these patients. We have an FDA fast track designation. In order to obtain a fast track designation, a company has to prove that its drug has the potential to be an improvement over existing therapies in a specific patient population which involves a serious disease and an unmet need. The FDA has made those findings with regard to our drug, Recorsa, to be used in combination with AstraZeneca's drug, Tagrisso, in late-stage cancer patients. This is really important because nearly every patient who takes Tagrisso will ultimately become resistant to it. The number really is close to 100%. So if you think of it as a pipeline or a funnel, these patients who are eligible for AstraZeneca's drug, Tagrisso, will go on to that drug, they'll receive that drug, and at some point they'll become resistant to it. And when they do, our proposition is that we can be added to Tagrisso and that the patients will receive a further benefit. That's the basis of our fast track designation, and that fast track population is late stage non-small cell lung cancer. We've demonstrated clinical achievement. This is not just theoretical. In addition to a great amount of preclinical research done by our researchers at MD Anderson Cancer Center, we've done 2 prior clinical trials, and we've treated over 50 patients. So and over those patients, we've demonstrated a favorable safety profile and strong evidence of efficacy. So we've taken a lot of the risk out of Recorsa. with the strong safety profile and evidence of efficacy. We have world-class academic partners. As I mentioned, MD Anderson in Houston, and now with our diabetes program, the University of Pittsburgh. You know, I really wasn't very familiar with the University of Pittsburgh before we began licensing negotiations with them, but I learned that they're a very distinguished world-class medical research institution. In fact, it's where the polio vaccine was invented back in the 1950s. And we've obtained a license from them for the diabetes therapy and are looking forward to continuing working with them and developing that program. We have an expanding technology pipeline. The first evidence of that was the diabetes therapy that we in-licensed last year. But we're adding additional technologies that will be announced soon. Some being developed in-house, others externally. We do expect to be announcing additional pipeline technologies, over the next few months. We have a strong balance sheet. As I mentioned, we had 44 million cash as of the end of the last quarter, and we have no debt other than trade payables. So, Spencer, would you advance the slide? This is our research and development pipeline. The top bar there is our ACCLAIM-1 clinical trial. That's a branded clinical trial. ACCLAIM-1 represents the trial combining our gene therapy Recorsa with Tagrisso, as I explained to you a few minutes ago. This is the subject of our fast track designation. This trial, we've engaged a clinic. We've obtained FDA consent to go forward with it. We've got clinical site engaged, and they're now recruiting patients. And we expect to be treating the first patient in the near future. The ACCLAIM-2 trial is somewhat behind that. This is the trial with combining Recorsa with Keytruda. We expect to soon be opening that trial as well. The next trial was, the next bar that you see was a Recorsa monotherapy trial. That was treatment of late-stage lung cancer patients with Recorsa alone, not in combination with any other therapy. And that trial demonstrated a favorable safety profile and strong evidence of efficacy. And then we did a phase 1/2 clinical trial of Recorsa plus Tarceva. Tarceva is an earlier generation EGFR inhibitor. That is, it's the same class of drug as Tagrisso, but an earlier generation of that. We did a phase 1/2 trial with that, and again saw favorable safety data and strong evidence of efficacy. If we have time, I'll show you some data from that trial, including a complete response that occurred in a late-stage lung cancer patient with that trial. Then finally, we have the next bar, which is discovery programs. These are programs that are not announced yet, but as I mentioned, we are working on several different additional pipeline technologies. And then finally, we have our preclinical program in diabetes, in which preclinical research is being done at the University of Pittsburgh. Next slide, please. This slide is intended to simply illustrate that we have two distinct programs. We have the oncology program that I've described to you. It's a combinational approach combining our gene therapy with other approved cancer drugs. There are a number of cancer drugs that our gene therapy could be combined with. Our academic researchers have identified a half dozen or more. But our initial combination drugs are Tagrisso and Keytruda, as I've described. And then our other distinct program is the diabetes program, which uses a different delivery system. It's designed to treat both type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Diabetes affects about 10% of the United States population, or 34 million people. Many of the patients are children, as you know, as I'm sure you know. Next slide, please. Next slide. So let me get back to the non-small cell lung cancer market. I'm sure you recall that in one of the bullet points I showed you earlier, I said that we're addressing very large markets. The total market for non-small cell lung cancer therapeutics, it's down in the lower right corner of this slide. It's over 20 billion now. It's expected to reach 26 billion by 2023. Of that market, about 14 billion represents sales of Keytruda, one of the drugs we're combining with. 4 billion represents sales of Tagrisso, or excuse me, these are 2020 sales, not the 2026 sales. These are 2020 sales, 14 billion of Keytruda, 4 billion of Tagrisso. So again, our proposition is that we can be combined with these two very large selling drugs and participate in those markets. We would be an add-on to these drugs already being sold in these markets. Now, as to the unmet need, there are about 2 million lung cancer cases a year. Late-stage lung cancer is almost always fatal, so a huge unmet need. About 84% of these cases represent non-small cell lung cancer, which is the type we're addressing. So again, large markets, large unmet need. This slide illustrates our platform. Basically, as I told you, we have multiple tumor suppressor and therapeutic cancer genes, or cancer fighting genes that we can deliver with our delivery system. We can address multiple types of cancer. We have preclinical data showing that our drug might benefit a range of cancers, including breast cancer, triple negative breast cancer, which is very difficult to treat, renal cell carcinoma, soft tissue carcinomas, and a range of others. So a number of potential cancer targets with our first gene. And again, this can be combined with a range of other cancer-fighting drugs. So you can see there are a lot of opportunities for success here with this platform. And we do intend to build this platform out, using it to deliver other genes and to address other cancers. This is an illustration of our lipid nanoparticle delivery system. We're using cationically charged lipid nanoparticles. These are electronically charged that carry DNA to tumors. These nanoparticles are positively charged. Cancer cells carry a negative charge. And one of the mechanisms that causes these nanoparticles to target cancer cells is that opposite charge. Now, if you inject this by IV, which we do, these nanoparticles travel throughout the bloodstream and attach to tumors wherever they're found. Thus, they can attach to metastatic tumors and even tumors that are not yet identified. So think about that. Many types of cancer treatment, including many gene therapies, have to address a specific tumor. Some gene therapies have to be injected directly into a tumor. With ours, these nanoparticles circulate and find the tumors wherever they are. So that's an incredible benefit of this system.
I'm going to jump on here, Rodney, just because we are at time. There's just one question from the chat I want to get to from Nirav, and that was, can you ask for an update? Sorry about that. Can you ask for an update on the diabetes trial and when that will begin?
Well, there isn't a clinical trial of the diabetes technology yet. That program is preclinical. It's being conducted at the University of Pittsburgh under the control of Dr. George Giddies. And we are waiting on additional preclinical data from them. They're doing research in apes. They previously published research in mice. And so we're waiting for them to reach a point where they can release research on their research in primates. So that's all I can say at this point.
Got it. Rodney Varner, President and CEO of Genprex. URL is up on the screen. Rodney, thanks so much for coming on the Benzinga Small Cap Healthcare Conference today.